Meet Ryan and Steve. They are both 32. They live in the same city. They both earn $80,000 a year. And after years of responsible financial decisions, canceled subscriptions, and convincing themselves that supermarket brand cereal tastes exactly like the expensive stuff, they've both managed to save $80,000. Financially, they are identical. Personality-wise, not even close. Ryan likes stability in every part of his life. He likes having a plan and knowing what comes next. He wants something that feels permanently his, a car he can customize the way he wants, park exactly where he wants, and never have to explain to anyone. Steve is different. He values flexibility. He doesn't want to be tied to one thing for years. He likes the idea of driving something new every couple of years. No long-term commitment, no long-term thinking required, no attachment to a piece of metal that might not fit his life in 3 years anyway. So they make their choices. Ryan buys, Steve leases. And on the surface, for the first 2 years, Steve looks like he made the smarter move. His car is newer. It smells like a showroom. People notice it in the parking lot. His coworkers ask about it. Ryan's car is fine, but it's not exciting. It doesn't turn heads. It just runs, quietly, every single day. And nobody at the office has ever once commented on it. Here's the question neither of them is asking, and it's the one that decides everything. What does each of these decisions actually cost, not this month, but over the next 20 years? Because a car is not just a purchase. It's a monthly decision you make for as long as you own or lease it, and small monthly decisions, repeated for decades, are how ordinary incomes quietly turn into either real wealth or a kind of comfortable, well-dressed exhaustion. Stay with me, because the answer isn't about which car is nicer. It's about something almost nobody explains clearly, something dealerships and leasing companies have every incentive to keep blurry, because clarity is bad for their business. By the end of this, you'll understand exactly what a car costs you, not in sticker price, but in the years of your life it quietly takes, one payment at a time. It gets stranger before it gets clearer, because the version of this decision that looks like winning almost never is. Here's the part nobody tells you when you're standing in that dealership. Keys practically already in your hand, the finance manager sliding a payment number across the desk like it's the only number that matters. A new car loses roughly a fifth of its value in the first year alone, and by the time it's 5 years old, it's typically worth less than half of what you paid for it. That's not a rumor. That's just what depreciation curves look like across the industry, model after model, year after year. You are not just buying a car. You are buying an asset that starts dying the moment you drive it off the lot. And the interest on your loan does not care that the thing securing it is shrinking underneath you the entire time you're paying it off. Steve doesn't see any of this happening, because leasing hides it beautifully. He never owns the depreciation. He just pays a fee to rent it, quietly, every month, forever, as long as he wants a new car. And that's the first thing worth sitting with. Ownership makes depreciation visible and, at times, painful. Leasing makes it invisible and permanent. One of those is worse. Read that again slowly, because most people never do the math to find out which. Let's talk about Maria. 34, works in logistics, made a completely normal decision that millions of people make every single year. She financed a $42,000 SUV over 72 months, 6 years, because the monthly payment fit comfortably inside her budget. It felt responsible. She checked the number, not the structure underneath the number. 18 months in, she needed to sell it. Job relocation, nothing dramatic, nothing reckless. She owed $31,000 on the loan. The car, by then, was worth $24,000. She was $7,000 underwater on an asset that had never, for one single day, been fully hers. That's not a discipline problem. Maria didn't overspend on lattes or skip a budgeting app or make some careless purchase. It's a sequencing problem, and sequencing problems are invisible until someone points them out. She financed a fast depreciating asset over a slow, long timeline, and the math worked against her from day one, regardless of how careful she felt signing the papers. Now here's the part that actually separates people financially over the long run. And it has almost nothing to do with willpower. It's what you do with the gap between what a car costs and what it doesn't have to cost you. Picture two people making the same income, same savings, same exact starting line, and one of them redirects $400 a month, every month, into a simple index fund instead of a car payment. At a long-run average market return of somewhere around 7 to 8%, over 25 years, that $400 a month grows into something in the neighborhood of $370,000. Not from a windfall, not from a bonus, not from some risky bet, from the exact same money the other person spent making sure their car looked impressive in a parking lot they drive through in 90 seconds and never think about again. $400 a month. That's it. That's the whole trick. The gap does all the work. silently, in the background, for as long as you let it. This is where Ryan and Steve stop looking identical. Steve's lease resets every 3 years. New car, new payment, same monthly outflow, forever, with zero equity building underneath it at any single point along the way. He will never, not once, own the thing he's paying for month after month. He is, functionally, renting his transportation for the rest of his working life, and every payment disappears completely the moment it's made. Ryan bought his car with cash from his savings, an 11-year-old sedan with decent mileage and a clean service history, and he's driving it into year 4 with nothing but routine maintenance. No payment, none. That $80,000 he had, most of it never left his investment account. It's compounding, untouched, quietly working, while Steve's $80,000 evaporated into lease payments years ago and never came back in any form. Here's a name worth remembering. Derek, 29, works in sales, leased a brand new luxury sedan the month he got promoted. Made sense to him at the time. He'd made it, and the car was supposed to prove it, to his coworkers, to his clients, to himself. 5 years later, Derek has leased 3 different cars. He has paid, cumulatively, over $60,000 in lease payments across those 3 cars. He owns 0% of any of them. Not $1 of equity. Not one asset he could sell tomorrow if he suddenly needed cash. He looks, by every visible measure, like the guy who's winning. He is, by every measure that actually matters, the guy who's been quietly falling behind the entire time, one impressive-looking payment at a time. And this is the counterintuitive part. The part that reframes everything you thought you understood about who's doing well and who isn't. The person driving the 10-year-old paid-off car isn't behind. He's usually the one who's actually free. He has no monthly obligation tied to a depreciating box on wheels. His money is somewhere else, working, growing, compounding quietly in the background while everyone else is still making car payments on cars from 3 leases ago. Once you see this, you can't unsee it. The people who look rich start looking broke. The plain, boring, paid-off cars start looking like freedom, and freedom, it turns out, doesn't come with a badge on the hood. There's a piece of this most people never factor in at all, because it doesn't show up on the payment sticker. Insurance on a new financed car typically runs meaningfully higher than insurance on an older, paid-off one, because the insurer is covering the full replacement value, not just liability. Lenders usually require comprehensive and collision coverage for as long as the loan exists, whether you'd choose that coverage on your own or not. Add in the higher registration fees that scale with a vehicle's value in many places, and the newer, financed car is quietly more expensive to simply keep insured and legal every single month, long before a single mile is driven. Call it $200 a month in some cases, sometimes more, layered directly on top of the payment itself. Nobody mentions this part in the commercial. Then there's the part that feels like the opposite of a cost, right up until it isn't. Maintenance on a paid-off car past the 100,000-mile mark does go up. That's real, and it's worth naming honestly instead of pretending an older car is free. But even a genuinely bad year, a transmission issue, a set of brakes, an air conditioning repair, rarely comes close to a full year of car payments on something newer. Ryan budgets around $1,000 a year for repairs on his older sedan, sets it aside automatically, and most years he doesn't touch half of it. Compare that to Steve's roughly $7,200 a year in lease payments alone, before insurance, before anything else. The math isn't close, and it was never designed to be. Now let's talk about the flip side, because the real math isn't simply buying always wins. That's too clean. And clean is usually where the nuance goes to die. Sometimes renting or leasing genuinely makes sense, and it's worth being honest about exactly when. If your income is unpredictable, if you're self-employed and your cash flow swings hard from month to month, tying up capital in a car you own outright can be the wrong move for you specifically, even if it's the right move on average. If you drive under 6,000 miles a year and barely need a car at all, a subscription service or short-term rental can genuinely beat ownership on pure cost, because you're not paying to own an asset that mostly sits still. And if you run a business where the vehicle is a legitimate, documented tax-deductible expense, leasing sometimes changes the math meaningfully in your favor in ways ownership simply doesn't. The real math isn't about which choice is morally superior. It's about which choice actually matches your life, your income pattern, and your usage, not your Instagram feed. Consider Jasmine, 36, runs a small catering business, leases a cargo van specifically because it's a documented business expense that offsets her tax bill every year, and because she genuinely needs a newer, more reliable vehicle under manufacturer warranty for daily deliveries she can't afford to have breaking down mid-contract. For Jasmine, leasing isn't a status purchase. It's a calculated business decision with a clear return attached to it, reviewed every single year by her accountant. That's the difference. Steve's lease is emotional, dressed up as practical. Jasmine's lease is practical, full stop. The vehicle is identical in structure. The reasoning behind it is not. And that reasoning is the entire ballgame. Let's bring in Priya. 31, works in healthcare. Bought a 5-year-old hatchback in cash for $14,000 back when she landed her first full-time job. She's driven it for 8 years since. Basic maintenance, 1 new set of tires, 1 alternator. That's the entire list. The $400 and some a month she never had to spend on a payment went, automatically, every single month, into a retirement account she barely thinks about anymore. She's not wealthy in the flashy, visible sense. Nobody in a parking lot has ever looked twice at her car. But she has more sitting quietly in that account than most people her age have in total net worth. And she built it without one single dramatic decision. Just the absence of a car payment, compounding, for almost a decade, untouched. There's a second calculation worth running. One that hits differently because it starts from the moment of purchase instead of the moment of payoff. Say Ryan had instead financed a new $45,000 truck the same year Steve started leasing, putting down $10,000 and financing the rest over 6 years at a typical rate. His payment lands somewhere around $650 a month. Now compare that to Priya's used car approach. No payment at all after the initial cash purchase. The difference between those two paths, $650 a month, invested instead of spent, over the same 25-year window, doesn't land near $370,000. It lands closer to $600,000. One vehicle decision, made at 32, quietly worth more than most people's entire retirement savings by the time they're ready to stop working. That's not a coincidence. That's what compounding does when you stop interrupting it. Here's one more name, because the pattern only becomes undeniable once you've seen it play out more than once. Tom, 41, an electrician, has never in his adult life made a car payment. Not because he can't afford one, but because he made a decision in his 20s to buy dependable, slightly older vehicles in cash and drive them until the repair bills stopped making sense, usually somewhere past the 200,000-mile mark. He's owned 4 cars in 19 years. His college roommate, similar income the entire time, has owned 9, always financed, always upgrading before the last one was even close to paid off. Tom has a fully funded retirement account, a paid-off house, and 0 debt of any kind. His roommate has a driveway full of history and a net worth that, by his own admission, would surprise people who've seen his cars. If this is landing, subscribe, because this channel breaks down the real numbers behind decisions like this every single week. Now, the next part is where it actually separates the people who talk about money from the people who quietly build it, because knowing the math isn't the same thing as using it. Here's the reframe, the one from the very beginning, finally answered. Ryan, plain and unimpressive on paper, driving a car nobody notices, is the one quietly winning. Steve, who looked like he'd figured it out, who had the newer car and the better parking lot presence, has been running in place for a decade, and he doesn't even know it, because leasing is engineered to feel painless one payment at a time. It has nothing to do with who works harder or who deserves it more. It has everything to do with which one of them understood what a car actually is, a depreciating tool you need for transportation, not a monthly identity subscription. So what do you actually do with this? Not theory. Actual steps you can use the next time you're standing in that dealership with a payment number sliding across the desk toward you. Before you buy or lease anything, ask one honest question. Am I buying transportation? Or am I buying an image of myself I want other people to see? That single question kills more bad car decisions than any spreadsheet ever will. Because most bad car decisions were never really about the car. If you're financing, keep the loan term short, for years or less if you can manage it, because long loans are how you end up owing more than the car is worth for years at a stretch, the way Maria did. A shorter loan forces a bigger monthly payment, which forces you to buy something you can genuinely afford, not something a 72-month term makes merely look affordable on paper. Buy used when you can, ideally a car that's already taken its steepest depreciation hit, usually somewhere between 2 and 5 years old. Let someone else eat that brutal first-year value drop. You get almost the same car for a meaningfully lower price, because the previous owner already paid for the privilege of being first. Run the numbers in cost per mile, not just cost per month, because that's the number that actually tells you the truth. Take the total you'll spend on a vehicle, payment, insurance, fuel, maintenance, over the years you expect to keep it, and divide by the miles you expect to drive. A new financed car often lands somewhere around 70 to 90 cents a mile once everything is counted. A well-maintained used car, paid off, frequently lands closer to 30 or 40 cents a mile over the same stretch. That gap, multiplied by the 12 to 15,000 miles most people drive in a year, is real money leaving your hands every single year, whether or not you ever sit down and calculate it. Set a hard ceiling before you shop, not after. A common, conservative guideline is to keep your total vehicle cost, including insurance, under roughly 10 to 15% of your take-home pay. It's not a law, it's a guardrail. And guardrails work best when you set them before you're standing in a showroom under fluorescent lights with someone whose entire job is helping you forget you set one. And whatever the difference is between the car payment you didn't take and the one you would have, automate it. Send it straight into an investment account the same day your paycheck lands, before you see it, before you're tempted to spend it on something else that also depreciates the moment you buy it. The whole trick with the gap only works if you never have to make the decision to save it twice. Get your financing sorted before you ever walk onto a lot, not after. Pre-approval from a bank or credit union gives you a real number to compare against whatever the dealership offers, and it removes the single biggest piece of leverage they have over you: the ability to control the only number you can see. Dealership financing sometimes beats it. Often it doesn't. You won't know which unless you already have a number in your pocket that isn't theirs. Separate the car decision from the emotional moment that triggered it. A promotion, a breakup, a milestone birthday. These are exactly the moments dealerships are best at turning into 6-year commitments, because you're not shopping with your calmest brain in that moment, and they know it. If you feel the pull to buy something the same week something big happened in your life, wait 30 days. If it still makes sense in 30 days, it'll still make sense then. If it doesn't, you just avoided becoming Derek. If this got you thinking differently about what a car actually costs you, the next thing worth watching is the one about why looking rich and being rich are almost never the same thing, because this exact pattern, the visible choice versus the invisible cost, shows up everywhere else in your financial life too, not just in the driveway. Fast forward 10 years. Ryan is 42 now. Same modest approach, a newer car in the driveway now, bought in cash the same way, no payment, no debt, and a retirement account that's grown steadily every single year nobody was watching. Steve is on his 4th lease. Newer, nicer, more expensive than the first one. He still has no equity in anything with wheels. He still makes the payment every month, on time, responsibly, the exact same way he always has. Same income, same starting line, 10 years ago. A decade apart now in every way that actually matters. Picture them again, side by side, the way they were at 32, $80,000 each, same job title, same city, same optimism about what came next. Neither of them was reckless. Neither of them was lazy. Neither of them made a single decision that would have looked wrong in the moment it was made. That's what makes this so easy to miss. There was no dramatic mistake to point to, no obvious warning sign, just one small monthly number, repeated for a decade, quietly pointed in 2 different directions. The car was never really the decision. The decision was what you do with the money you don't spend on it. Get that part right, and the rest is just math, quietly compounding, whether you're watching it or not.